All right, let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Edition per Farmer Cigar Garage Talks. We are out in the garage today, and this is Blizzard Armageddon 2026. Probably when this video releases, if I have internet, if I have power. We will be in the midst of one of the biggest blizzards we've had in approximately 50 years, according to the forecasters. Minimum of 2 feet of snow in the next 2 days. We're averaging about 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches of snow an hour. It's just getting wild out there. They're predicting maybe 3 to 4 inches are going to come, or 3 to 4 feet. Excuse me. I just gotta, I gotta get my measurements right. But at this time, Sunday afternoon, just after lunch, when I shoot these videos, we still have power and we still have internet. So we do got the generator ready to go. We got spare kerosene. We've got food and water, of course, 4 days. So I'm not too worried about it. I definitely feel comfortable enough to sit down with you fine folks and shoot a video. So welcome. Thank you. If you are watching this on Monday, if I get it out, glad you have power. Glad you have access to the internets. Before we get too deep into today's topic, what are we smoking? What are we drinking? This cigar from Oscar Valderez. We have the Scorched Earth, kind of a fun cigar for tonight's topic. He has the Flat Earth, the Round Earth, the Scorched Earth series. I do enjoy these cigars. They've got those smoke-through bands that I do like. Tasty, nice dark cigar, which I am enjoying. As far as the drink goes, this was kind of fun when I found from Grand Armory Brewing. Right to Bear Craft. Kind of fun little thing there. And the Mother Smuckers. A raspberry ale. I do actually enjoy fruit ales. Raspberry ales in particular are one of my favorite kind of niche or bougie or whatever you want to call it, ales to drink. What is it? Frangelico? Is that the name of it? No, it's not Frangelico. There is a really expensive, really bougie ale out there. Look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? Nice red color going. Ooh, interesting. So usually they're sweet. That one's really dry. Like very, very dry. Not bad though. I'm going to enjoy that. So, as you can tell from the title of the video, let's talk about forgiveness. So I was driving with Swedish Compass. She wanted to get some hours in. We had to run into town. And we have some deep intellectual conversations while driving. And she was talking about, we got on the topic about an individual who she feels pretty much did her wrong. And she said that, one of the things I talked about in a couple of videos is about praying for your enemies. And she's like, Dad, in your videos, you talk about praying for your enemies and knowing the fact that if you can turn their hearts, you have gotten immense grace and blessings from God, and it's a wonderful thing. But if you can't, God will, the vengeance is his, as he says, he'll heap burning coals on their head if they do not have a change of heart. I said, well, yes, sweetheart, that's something I firmly believe. There are a lot of people I'll consider my enemies who I do pray for. I'm hoping they have a conversion of heart. They realign themselves with Jesus. And she said, yeah, the problem is that I very much hope they don't have that conversion of heart and they just get the heaping coals. So, yeah, that's not good. And I explained to her, so I had a little conversation about forgiveness, because I asked her what she knew of forgiveness, what she knew about forgiving someone. None to my surprise. I mean, she is young. She's just now turned 18. she kind of had a bit of a misunderstanding of what it means to forgive someone. And so I kind of wanted to, after talking to her, kind of bring up my views. Now, I'm not specifically saying this is the Catholic view, although I do believe that it is deeply based in Catholicism. Um, I might be a little bit off, but I don't think so. Um, to forgive someone, that is an interesting concept. As Americans, it is not something that we're very good at. Um, the idea of forgiving, for not even Americans, just people in general. Um, when we had our Brazilian exchange student, even though Portugal took over Brazil, hundreds of years ago, he still had disdain for the Portugal people. The FIFA Cup was going on, and the only thing he really hoped for is that Brazil didn't have to win the FIFA Cup, but Portugal definitely had to lose. It's again, it did not directly affect him. It's hundreds of years old. Our Finnish student talked about Russia and how they took over part of the Finnish country. It didn't affect her. She is again, 70, 80 years removed from when that happened. But yet she can't let go and forgive Russia, although it had nothing to do with her. So I'm not going to say it's an American thing. I think it's just a human thing to hold on to grudges, to not forgive people. And I get it. I have been there. There have been many people throughout my life who have wronged me. And for many, many years, I would not forgive them for what they did. But then I came to realize a few fundamental facts. So, like my daughter, I believe to forgive someone, you had to say what they did was okay. And that's not true. This is the biggest thing I tried to press upon her is, let's say someone came into your house and stole all your money. We believe that if I say, okay, I forgive that person, we're basically saying, well, it's okay they stole my money. Maybe they needed it more. Maybe they were impoverished. They needed food. They needed to pay off a medical bill. So if I forgive them, I'm saying it's okay. And this is what I had to press upon myself and my daughter. That no, that's not what we're saying. When you forgive someone, you're not saying what they did is okay or fine or you're over it. You might not be. You might not be over what they did to you. It may still be affecting your life today. When you say you're willing to forgive someone, first off, you're willing to start the healing process. There's a beautiful story about two Jewish men. They're sitting at a cafe, and they have a German barista. And the one Jewish man, spits in his face and storms off. Where the other Jewish man, finishes his coffee. The two Jewish men are talking later, and the one Jewish man who's spit in the German guy's face is like, how can you, stand those people? What they did to us, what they did to our people. He said, you are still, because they both served time in a concentration camp, he said, the difference between us is you are still in a concentration camp. They still have you prisoner. Where I was released. I'm able to go beyond it. To truly forgive someone, first off, you remove their power to control you. When these horrible things happen to us, they define and shape our lives. And as long as we don't start that process of forgiveness, they always will. They will have utter control over you. You are still, that person is taking up valuable headspace in your brain rent-free. They are still controlling you. They are still directing and dictating your future. So once you're ready to forgive them, you're not saying what they did was right. You might be able to identify why they did what they did. Well, I can see why you did that. I can see why you wronged me. I can see why you stole that money and how you were able to justify it. I can understand that. I know why you did it. But I don't have to admit that that is okay and that that was right. I think that's what we get wrong, especially in America, is you have this huge movement of, well, if a poor person steals, they have to do to survive, so we shouldn't get them in trouble. No. Negative. If a poor person steals, they still have to be held and accountable for their actions. 100%. Full stop. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They need to be held accountable. But we can understand why they did it. It doesn't make what they did justified. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it good. The first step of forgiveness is to understand why the person did it. A good example I can give is, one of the jobs I had, one of the ladies wanted my position. Unfortunately, she could not get the degrees and licensures she needed. So she instead undermined my job, undermined my career, undermined my ability, and fabricated stuff to the point she got me fired. I was angry, I was upset, I was mad. But when I was ready to forgive her, the first thing I had to do is stop and say to myself, okay, without getting too preachy, why did she do that? Why did she torpedo my career? And I stopped and honestly looked at what she stood for, what she did, what she believed in, and realized that her life, in her eyes, was very meaningless unless she got my position. She got to the pinnacle of what she thought was her career. And she couldn't do that with me sitting there. I was making changes that she didn't agree with. And she believed that it was her program, her job, her destiny, shall we say, to direct that program. So I can see logically she had one choice, and that one choice was to stab me in the back and get me fired. Now, 100% it doesn't make what she did all right. It doesn't excuse her behavior. It does not make her justified in her action. 100% no. Do not misunderstand what I am saying. Nothing she did was good or right or just. But I can see why she did it. I can see her suffering and broken heart. I can see the trauma and the lack of connection with God that she had. She didn't do it necessarily to destroy me. She would have destroyed anyone in that position, of course. So I saw her actions for what it was. A sad person who had no choice but to do a sad thing. She didn't do this for the betterment of herself or others. She did it for the fact that her life was meaningless. And getting that position that I had, she felt was going to give her life meaning. And it allowed me to pray for that. Again, I am not justifying or excusing her actions. What she did was wrong. She jeopardized me and my family's ability to live. Also, she could have initials, a title after her name. But I could see in her mind, those initials, that title, meant more to her than potentially even damaging her soul. And that's why she did what she did. Now, again, what she did was wrong. But I knew what to pray for. And I did pray for her. And in my heart, I did forgive her. She had but one choice. She had the choice whether or not to make it. And she chose to make that choice. But I understand why she did it. Now, I'll never trust her again. If our paths ever cross again, I will not be filled with pleasantries and give her the benefit of the doubt and believe that she has necessarily changed. And that's probably my failing. I have to admit, I do have a Protestant friend who I actually look towards as the model of someone who can forgive. He's talked about people who have wronged him or his family and how he is more than willing to pull them back into the fold, back into his trust. Now, there's a lengthy list of things that that person has to do. Be truly repentant and write themselves back to Jesus and the Word. And it's amazing. I look up to him as the model of forgiveness because I would have a hard time doing that. I hope that at that moment comes that someone who has wronged me, that I am able to see the progress they've made and realize that it's not about me anymore. It's about them and what they've been able to do. It's an amazing thing that he's able to do, and I'm very proud to have met him and seen that perspective. I still have room to grow for forgiveness and forgiving people. I'm definitely not the type who will forgive and forget, which, spoiler alert, we're not actually called to do in the Bible. There are many examples where they say, forgive someone, but you don't necessarily have to trust them again. That is, forgiving and forgetting is not a Christian or Catholic edict. We can still remember. We can still use that to judge future events. I didn't watch the whole video. There was a video that talked about the turn the other cheek and how we have that wrong. But I do get the gist of it. That's not exact. He's not saying specifically let him hit you again. More, it's being understanding that vengeance is not yours, retribution is not yours. It is not yours to go and remember in the time of Jesus, if someone wronged you, you could then exact revenge, and the law was cool with that. Like the law was totally fine with you, street justice, right? Killing the messenger was absolutely a thing. We unfortunately have a problem that if we say we forgive someone, people interpret that as we are now justifying their action. 100%, that's not what I'm saying. You do not have to justify someone's actions to forgive them. That's why I press upon my daughter, the person who she said, she prays for them, not hoping for a conversion of souls. She prays for them, hoping they don't convert, and they get the coals heaped on their head. And I said, well, that person's still living rent-free in your head. That person keeps wronging you, and you let them keep wronging you. Again, we can say their actions were completely, utterly, totally wrong. But we understand why they made that decision. We can forgive them and move on. We never have to trust them again, necessarily, unless, again, like my Protestant friend said, they show that true conversion of heart and true realign themselves back to Jesus, then, okay, maybe we got to examine this a little closer. But just because you forgive someone, this is what my daughter has a hard time with, many people have a hard time with. Just because you forgive someone, you're not saying what they did is okay. What you're saying is they committed a sin, they did wrong, but just like Jesus, just like God, you're able to move on. You're able to forgive them. Let it go. Realize why they did it. And move on. By not having forgiveness, we never move on. And we allow that person to keep sinning against us, keep committing the same atrocities against us. We allow that one act to dictate the rest of our lives instead of us moving on. Forgiveness is a two-pronged spear. When you forgive someone, you have to stab yourself and you stab the other person. But you can both move on to a better place. By forgiving someone, you take the power away from them, from the hurt they caused you, and you put it back in your own hands. It's lofty, it's hard to understand. I understand I'm talking kind of in riddles and parables, and it's not easy to always understand, but the one thing I want you to take away is you can definitely forgive someone. But one, it did not make what they did okay if you forgive them. Two, you don't have to forget it. You can remember it. And three, if you don't forgive them, remember, they still have hold over you and probably live rent-free in your head. The greatest thing we can do is forgive someone and move on. Become the better version of ourselves. Anyway, folks, I'm going to go enjoy my delicious cigar, my very dry raspberry ale. Who are you called to forgive? What does it mean for you? If you can't forgive them, why? Why don't you let them leave your mind, leave your soul, leave your actions? Remember, just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you're saying what they did was all right. Food for thought on your drives, food for thought while you're out there. But remember, while you're out there, stay safe, stay warm. Hopefully this blizzard doesn't hurt you too bad. We'll see you in the next one.